And let's start with our 36th 4th District Representative, Brother Michael West, who oversees the Ohio and West Virginia states for the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Brother West.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. I just want to recognize you, Brother Charles, the 4th District Chair for Conflict Resolution. You and your partnership with Sister Clark is a phenomenal program. It's a phenomenal partnership, and I'm really looking forward to this program that you guys are putting on. I'm just very excited about what you're doing in all of the 4th District with Ohio and West Virginia, specifically with what's been going on with the partnership with Delta Sigma Theta up in the greater Cleveland area. So really appreciative of that. Like I said, Sister Clark, we appreciate the partnership that you have with Brother Charles, and I'm just excited about this program because in Omega, we value the importance of motherhood and women in general. So this is something that's near and dear to us. We don't tolerate nor do we accept domestic violence, and we think this is a very, very, very worthwhile program that's being put forth tonight. So looking forward to seeing the program, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. Thank you for allowing me to bring greetings. I just want to continue to view and see everything that comes out of this program. So again, thank you from the 4th District. I look forward to the continued success and the continued partnership of Zeta Omega, as well as the Cleveland chapters of Delta Sigma Theta. Thank you, Brother Charles.
Thank you, Brother DR. And at this point, please welcome the bossless for the great Zeta Omega chapter here in Cleveland, Ohio, Brother Grover Brown. Brother Brown.
Thank you, Brother Charles. Greetings on behalf of the brothers of the great Zeta Omega chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I'm bossless Grover Brown. Domestic violence and conflict is one of many committees that fall under our social action umbrella. Like they said, Brother Charles does a great job for this chapter as the chairman. He keeps us informed of all activities that the fraternity has and helps organize events like the one tonight. This program gets chapters and to facilitate and participate in such activities to help uplift our community. It is the duty of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity to take a stand against domestic violence. Zeta Omega chapter, along with the devastating divas of the Greater Cleveland alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, will be taking several steps to help individuals experience domestic violence to seek help and support. There are various resources available, including hotlines, shelters, advocacy organizations that can help assist and guidance. It is also important for our communities to raise awareness, promote education on healthy relationships, and work towards creating a culture that condemns domestic violence. It is an honor to bring to you tonight's event. I hope that we can educate those who may have questions and concerns. I also encourage that you take the information that you received tonight and share it with those who need it best. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Shante Dixon, the chair of the Committee for Domestic Violence Initiative of the Greater Cleveland Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And it is indeed my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Lawrence Henry, who graduated from East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania. He received his commission as a military intelligence officer and a degree in speech communication in 1993. Dr. Lawrence has served in various command and staff positions. He was deployed to South and Central America, Africa, and South Korea, and served in combat over 10 times in support of the global war on terrorism in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. Dr. Lawrence is a United States Army Special Forces Green Beret. He retired in 2020 with over 26 years of service as a full colonel. Currently, he is senior trainer for V2X. He is also the CEO and president of small business focused on strategic solutions for contemporary conflict and qualitative dissertation consultation support. He has been a presenter on worldwide forums addressing conflict resolution, intimate partner violence, and sexual assault. He is a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, initiated at Alpha Eta chapter in 1990. He has served as bacillus in the 9th and 12th districts. He is a lifetime member and is currently a member of Epsilon Lambda Lambda chapter in Dallas, Texas. He is also a member of the ancient Egyptian Arabic Order Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, where he has been the honorary past imperial potentate. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lawrence Henry.
Thank you so very much. As I share my presentation here, can everybody see that? Like, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sister Dixon, for that beautiful presentation, that beautiful introduction. Yes, my name is Dr. Lawrence Henry, and I am a proud member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm also the CEO and president of A Bridge to Light, which Bridge to Light strives to span from the shadows of hopelessness into the fields of opportunities. So I look forward to this presentation. I'm extremely humbled to speak such an important topic this evening. Although we're going to cover a lot, but we don't have a lot of time to cover. So I'll ask that whatever I say tonight, it hopes save some lives. The purpose of this presentation is to familiarize a lot of us to what is intimate partner violence. This may be the first time some of us have ever heard it before in our lives. Also, it is to orient one to a mindset in creating, how do we create and execute a safe plan to get away from intimate partner violence. I'm not going to tell you what to think, but how to think when creating and executing a exit plan with away from intimate partner violence. Please take notes. Tonight's presentation is not a full, complete list of the factors that support intimate partner violence. However, it's just going to be an orientation and an introduction to the mindset. But I ask you to take notes, not only for yourself, but for someone who's not here, he or she that is not here. You never know what you provide to them in the very near future can save your lives. Just to set the scene, we're going to talk about forms of violence. Our current culture, based on music, entertainment, 24-hour news cycle, violence is a common part of our lives. 10 years ago, it wasn't so common. But you want to look at the various forms of violence. Also, we'll look at gaslighting and IPV. And some of us may have heard gaslighting before, but what is this relationship to IPV? And also we'll look at the various barriers that affect one's planning, not only planning, but executing an exit plan. So as you can see, violence is defined as not only the use of physical force, but a threaten, to threaten someone and to cause psychological harm. That's what's speaking to the gaslighting piece, which we'll speak about later on in his presentation, and the deprivation of someone, which IPV, intimate partner violence, it deprives one from achieving a goal of access to human needs. One of those human needs is just basic security. So as we look to the right, we have several forms of violence. We all kind of are accustomed to physical violence and sexual violence and emotional violence, but there's a psychological violence, which IPV kind of falls into. And there's the verbal abuse that can be violent and so forth. Physical abuse and negligence. IPV, it deprives us from achieving our personal goals and professional objectives and so forth. So I also want to talk about another form of violence. We talked about the common violences, but structural violence. And structural violence is when a dominant group, a governing group, implements policies or procedures which create barriers was create barriers between of people with particular races, gender, ages, sexual orientation, and it deprives them. It deprives them, their access of regularly allocated resources like health services for a Black woman. She happens to be Black and a woman, and maybe a cultural issue, a cultural competency. They probably don't possess the proper cultural competency to really support the efforts of a Black woman. And that's a form of structural violence. Also, structural violence can be direct and indirect. It's like over time. This is just the way it is. And we look at Jim Crow and apartheid. Because you have a certain identity, certain accesses to rights, privileges that everyone else had access to, you did not have those rights and accesses and so forth. So structural violence is also directly or indirectly affects one's desire to plan and execute an exit plan. Looking at intimate partner violence, you can see some of the areas that's bolded: a romantic relationship. It varies. It may happen, one time or a series of times, and it may be severe over a period of time. But it's a violent act. It's a violent act, and it can range from physical violence, sexual violence, stalking, and so forth. Also, emotional violence, verbal abuse, financial abuse, and neglect. So these are all the aspects of intimate partner violence that we should consider when we're with our spouses or mates, whatever the case may be. How are we maybe indirectly facilitating intimate partner violence by facilitating not necessarily physical violence, but the emotional abuse that sometimes we interact with our spouses and so forth. During the holiday season, namely from like November to January, there appears to be a spike. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's a graph to show intimate partner violence as it rose in relation to periods outside of this time period. And namely, they're focusing on the November timeframe, the Thanksgiving timeframe. And here, during this period, we see holiday stresses possible, financial issues, depression, the loss of loved ones will create a sense of depression. Holiday parties with large gatherings, a lot of alcohol, or maybe a substance abuse involved settings, which can invite intimate partner violence. Maintaining a particular status, saving face, just remaining in a relationship during this period can further facilitate and exacerbate intimate partner violence. And just time at home. Sometimes, one has been away, and during this period, it's probably a longer period that we've been with our spouses or mates, and it creates, sometimes it creates tensions. And there's a episode of intimate partner violence or domestic violence during that period. And as I mentioned earlier, IPV can be isolated incidents or a pattern of behavior. Looking at gaslighting, a lot of us have heard this term gaslighting. Well, what is that? Gaslighting actually came from a play, which later turned into a movie, where the husband tried to trick his wife, making her feel like she was going insane by doing certain things in the house. And he tried to make her feel like she was losing her mind. This phrase was adopted by the psychiatric community, the psychological community, where one may try to feel that one's perceptions or realities are being compromised, that they're actually losing their mind. And this is a way of facilitating or creating control over that person. And here are some of the phrases and terms which someone may use to facilitate that control. Stop being so sensitive, when there's probably there's reason to be so sensitive if one has engaged you in domestic violence and or intimate partner violence. Why are you so angry? Well, there's a reason why someone is angry if they've been a victim or a survivor of intimate partner violence. And you have no right. You have no right to feel this way. Well, they may have a very valid reason to feel that way because you have treated them in a certain way, and it's all in your head. So there's some type of ways for the target, the person, to question themselves. Maybe I am being sensitive. Maybe I am angry. Maybe I shouldn't be so angry. He just pushed me. I didn't get hurt, or he just kind of mocked me in front of everybody. It's no big deal. Or it's all in your head. So yeah, I can get over this. So these are some ways that the attacker will try to create control over his target. Leaving. Leaving, there's various barriers to leaving a intimate partner violent situation, and these are not. These are it's just a sample, an example of some of the barriers that one can engage when attempting to leave. And physically, they're isolated. They may have been in the military, and they moved to Wisconsin, and they're from Florida, and they're isolated. They don't have a way to get out, or to even begin to get out. There's no safe havens or sanctuaries. Now I'll talk about the difference between what is a safe haven and sanctuary later on in this presentation. Emotional barriers is an attachment to the abuser. There's some type of attachment to the abuser. Protection. In my dissertation, the challenges that Black Legion women face when disclosing sexual victimization, a lot of Black women that were sexually assaulted did not disclose that they were sexually assaulted out of protecting the Black male or the assaulter. Because historically speaking, there's been a role as Black women to protect the Black man in certain situations. So she felt it was her role or responsibility to protect him because the world outside of their intimate relationship was so harsh to the Black man. Then you have the honeymoon environment in which there's a safe space or a perceived safe place is created during the makeup portion after intimate partner violence. And it usually draws the abused in, makes them feel comfortable. There's a lot of what appears to be love going on between the two and a shared affection between the two. But so this honeymoon period can serve as a barrier for them leaving or even planning to leave. And then there's a physical piece, lack of funding. She has been, dependent on him, or he could be dependent on her. And so there's a lack of funding there, and joint accounts may affect one's ability to even conceive leaving the relationship. Institutional barriers. You have family counselors, religious leaders, and they're very interested in saving the relationship, preserving the relationship, fighting through fighting air quote, getting through the relationship, to get to saving it, opposed to preventing violence. When there's violence, there's a crime being committed. So therefore, sometimes counselors will convince the abused to stay and just hang in there within this very violent environment. Police enforcement, sometimes they're not very consistent when dealing with the abuser. They see it maybe a disagreement versus a violent exchange, a violent event. Therefore, there's no controls put in place to further disable this type of event to happen again. And Black women, historically speaking, are attacked more often by their abuser, and the abuser is not held accountable for what occurred. Again, speaking back to it being perceived as a disagreement than a crime, and in some situations, there's a Black women that they can't be heard. that they're ultra strong, that in my dissertation, there was a perception during Jim Crow that she can't be raped. She's insatiable. So these are some of the historic and transgenerational perspectives of the Black woman. And as you see down below, the intersectional identities by Kimberly Crenshaw, her theory, intersectionality, she being Black, she being a Black woman from Cleveland, from this in the more intersectional, they say, oppressive factors associated with her identity, structures, systems, and relationships are sometimes not culturally fit or culturally competent to deal with that individual. Therefore, they lack support and lack the cultural competence to facilitate treatment and so forth. Restraining orders don't put a physical barrier between the assaulter and the target. And sometimes shelters are limited in space and resources. Therefore, these are all an example of some of the barriers that some of the abused face. So as Madam President Melody Frazier, she mentioned earlier, why not just get up and leave? Why not just get up and leave? That's the air quote logical thing to do. Make the decision, be decisive, be deliberate, and go. Well, oversimplification of problems such as IPV, especially when dealing with members of underserved communities, can be very, very dangerous. When you hear people say, the only thing you need to do is this, the only thing you gotta do is that, they don't have a really good understanding nor appreciation of how deep and complicated the problem is. So when you catch yourself saying that, the only thing you got to do is this, well, there's layers upon layers upon layers of complexity that you're not really acknowledging with that simple statement, and we all do it. As I mentioned before, oversimplification can be dangerous, and IPV, namely those members of underserved community, it demands detailed support. Speaking to each of the intersectional identities that may need support. So it's not a one-stop shop. It's not just give her money, give her a house, give her a car, and so she can leave or he can leave. It's more complicated than that. And leaving is not easy. And many participants on this Zoom can attest to that. It takes sometimes 5 to 7 times until somebody makes the decision to leave and stay gone. Okay, so that's a very, very important piece to understand. And sometimes when the abuser knows that the person is about to leave, they get more violent. They get more violent, incite more fear and so forth. A loss of sense and control will maybe drive them crazy to the point where they increase the level of various forms of violence to maintain control. Also, and I'll kind of hint to this later on, you're forced into a dilemma. Children, family, friends, predictability. These are a lot of the barriers and concerns that a woman and or a man needs to consider before they plan and execute an exit plan. I've spent over, as mentioned earlier, with my dear sister, Shante Dixon, I spent over 20, almost 30 years in the military, 20 of which was in special operations as a Green Beret, where I trained, advise, and assist many partner nations in South and Central America, Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth. What I was doing, I was enabling a mindset to facilitate protection. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about a unique mindset that it takes for one to plan and execute an escape plan. But before I say that, we must insulate the problem, and I'll speak to that later, opposed to isolating the problem. You must insulate her when she comes to you. Don't isolate her. And there's been issues where we have isolated those who are targets of IPV. So in thinking, when I got approached by this, I thought very hard on how am I going to approach this? And I saw creating an exit plan, executing an exit plan, it's a special operation. You're behind enemy lines. And to the point where one wrong move and it could cost you your life, Green Beret. It cost you your life in Navy SEAL. It cost your life, Sarah or Tommy. If you don't plan it, if you don't have the right mindset, and if you don't achieve what they call relative superiority. And this relative superiority was in a book called The Theory of Special Operations, written by Bill McRaven in 1995. And as you can see, it's the conditions when they're smaller. I'm going to substitute the term smaller for a vulnerable population that has kids, that has pets, that has medical issues, and so forth. A smaller force, a smaller element to gain a decisive advantage against a larger enemy. The enemy is the attacker. So how do we get that mindset? How do we do that? So a way to do that, so this is how Admiral McRaven was the former U.S. SOCOM Special Operations Command commander about 4 to 5 years ago. And he wrote this, that special operations personnel, the survivors, they must be able to achieve relative superiority, an advantage over the enemy, the attacker. They must plan, have a special plan. And I put in there, considering children, financing, housing, etc. Very, very discreetly, very carefully concealed. And it must be repeatedly rehearsed and within a realistic expectations. The most important portion of a plan, it's rehearsal. It serves you no good if you're just going to write it down and it just has it there. You have to rehearse it. You have to go through the what ifs and so forth, which I'll get into a little bit later. It has to be executed with surprise, based back to that discretion, speed, and purpose. And that purpose is, I'll speak to that purpose, is to decisively get away from the threat, get away from the abuser, and secure victory. How you define security, how you define victory is achieving, getting to a place of sanctuary. And I'll speak to that a little bit later. However, I don't want to overgeneralize this. I want to overgeneralize this is that this relative superiority mindset does not guarantee that you will, if you do this, that you will escape and plan to escape, exit in a successful manner. But failure to do this, failure to think along these lines will almost guarantee mission failure. So these are some of the principles. These are some of the principles that support relative superiority. Less is more. Less is more. And also think about all forms of information in the environment in which where you are and where you want to go. So leverage all forms of information, your intelligence before you go. Security. How do we speak to trusted personnel, vetted personnel to facilitate our security? How do we conceal the timings, methods of escape, and safeguard others in our forms of transportation, funding, and so forth? Very, very important. How do we repeat as far as the rehearsals will allow us to be decisive because we understand the environment. If we don't rehearse, then we're going to be kind of nervous and so forth. But if we rehearse and we understand the environment, the internal environment of ourselves, the external environment which we're working in, and the environment in which we want to go to, it will create a sense of decisiveness and competency. Speed. Again, speed and surprise. Throughout rehearsals, that will occur. Deception. Deception is this. Deception is just continue to do whatever that you've been doing to create that environment for you to plan and for you to depart. But timing is so very careful. And we just have to again make it very casual and common. Or if if there's a planned deception plan, rehearse that as well. And once it's occurring, be prepared to leave. Speed. This is how we get the advantage. This is how we get the superiority. And speed is measured in seconds and minutes. That's very important when dealing with an escape from an abuser. It could be within seconds. If you don't do everything that appears to be perfect, it can spoil your plan. And the purpose, lastly, the purpose, clearly defined, focused purpose. Your purpose is to escape the violence, period. Your purpose is to escape the violence. So how do we think that way? It's not coming back. It's not he'll get better. We have to escape the violence. And there's a personal commitment by all personnel. Everybody that's assisting, that's supporting the movement of you and or others, to include children. How is their personal commitment? And how do you facilitate that commitment is very, very important. So I ask you, take notes on this, because this right here is going to help someone on this line tonight during this holiday season that's struggling with domestic violence and or intimate partner violence. What's important also, a very supporting mechanism to the phases or the steps of relative superiority is contingency planning. Contingency planning saved my life, and others who did actions and activities like I did when I was in other countries. Period. Failure to do that, failure to account for contingency planning will result in outcomes that you did not desire. This is almost second to rehearsing is rehearsing your contingency planning. Be flexible, think through and walk through all your alternate plans. And I will see that you see that little equation down there on the left-hand side. 1 equals none. One plan equals none. Something's going to happen. Murphy's going to happen. It's going to rain. The car's not going to stop. It's not going to start. 1 equals none. But that's your primary plan. 2 equals 1. 3 equals 2. And 4 equals 3. And if you remember this, PACE. PACE, PACE plan. What is your PACE plan? Your PACE plan. What's your primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency plan? If you practice all of those things, the environment will be more receptive to you fighting and winning. I spoke about safe havens and sanctuaries. The safe haven is a place where you feel safe. However, the threat still has access to you. The abuser still has access to you. Work, places of worship, friends and family, places that you go. Although you may be out of the direct reach of this person right now, they can still access you. Sanctuary is out there, is out of the range of the threat. As we looked at the Journey Center for Safety and Healing, this can be a place of sanctuary for those dealing with intimate partner violence. Again, placing barriers between yourself. You can see the geographic barriers, the emotional barriers, and the social barriers. However, again, I don't want to overgeneralize this, because this demands thought and critical thinking to ensure that the person that's inflicting the violence cannot hurt you in what we believe is a sanctuary, but was actually a safe haven. As I mentioned before, we must insulate and not isolate. She or he must return with honor. Just like special operations guy, things happen sometimes where special operations personnel find themselves on the other end of the stick, and they must return with honor. And we must create the conditions for them to return with honor. And we're dealing with a person that has survived that has survived IPV. We can't label them, he was so stupid, or he was this, or she was that. We can't re-victimize them. We can't blame them. We can't scrutinize their decisions. And also the support agencies. We people on this webinar need to go out and facilitate a degree of cultural competence in the service support agencies that are located throughout Cleveland, Ohio, New York, New Jersey. That's a must occur when a Black woman, a Spanish woman, a Black woman with a disability comes in and reports. She can't be treated like everybody else. We have to look at every layer of her to provide the right treatment and right support for her and her family. We must insulate her. We must welcome her. We must put our arms and protect her. We must be non-judgmental. We must assist in rebuilding her life, in creating self-esteem and self-worth. And we must be culturally competent and culturally intelligent with those who don't look like us, but desire to understand their culture, understand their history, understand their traditions, so we can be more of a resource to them when we're assisting, when we're attempting to insulate them through the problem. And I understand that the Journey Center for Safety and Healing is one of those places that facilitate that insulation. This completes my presentation. And I just want to let you know that, again, my name is Lawrence X. Henry, and I am the founder and president of A Bridge to Light. And our vision is we span from shadows of hopelessness into fields of unlimited opportunity. And our mission statement is to enable underserved communities to overcome barriers which traditionally has hindered their process and their access to human needs. You can see the 3 bins in which we operate. And tonight, I'm operating the bin of mentorship and development, namely violence interruption and conflict resolution. That's my contact information. And thank you so very much for allowing me to be a part of this very, very special presentation. And I'm humbled to being allowed to do this. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Henry, for that informative presentation and for your presence here this evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Austin, and I currently serve as this year's co-chair of the Domestic Violence Initiative Committee with Greater Cleveland Alumni Chapter. I am honored to introduce our next presenter, Ms. Cheryl Thomas Washburn, graduate of Ursuline College, class of 1994, is a native Clevelander recently returning from the San Francisco Bay Area. She brings over 25 years of nonprofit, social, and human services experience. Cheryl is a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley's Human Services Executive Leadership Program, Cleveland State University School of Psychology, and is a certified diversity professional through the NTL Institute of Applied Behavioral Sciences. Cheryl's work also includes Chief Executive Officer and Principal of TOMIA LLC, a human relations consulting and coaching company, and co-principal of Washburn Thomas Associates LLC, partnering with corporations and organizations to assist human services and organizational development initiatives. She served as Division Head of Assessment and Stabilization for the Department of Children and Family Services of Santa Clara County, Director of Social Services for the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation, Director of Social Services Abode Services in Alameda County, California, and Director of Shelter and Homeless Programs for the Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries at 2100 Lakeside Lakeside Men's Emergency Shelter. Cheryl is also an active member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I present to you Ms. Cheryl Wishborn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here to be able to speak and teach and encourage and empower. So I appreciate this chance to share information with you that hopefully will strengthen each one of us to be able to be a support to someone who may need it. I wanted to talk about domestic violence, noting that it's extremely prevalent. It's power and control over another, resulting in restrictions and or violence that can be displayed, as Dr. Lawrence noted, in many different ways. What we recognize is that domestic violence crosses racial and cultural and socioeconomic and religious my thing is covered, and religious demographics, various demographics. And it occurs in all types of intimate relationships, and it happens to people of all ages. So it's interesting. Females aged 16 to 34 generally experience the highest rates of domestic violence. And from 1994 to 2010, about 4 in 5 victims of domestic violence were female. What's also noted is that 1 out of 7 victims of domestic violence are white women. 1.8 out of 7 are African ancestry women. Next, please. And so there are warning signs. We spoke about this in our previous gathering, so that you could kind of look at your relationship and perhaps those of others that surround you, so that you could see what may be happening that people might be trying to keep undercover. So look at yourself or look at your friends, and did your relationship happen and move really, really quickly, or did that of your friend? Did your friend's relationship seem like it was too good to be true? Did they often speak of being swept off their feet? Is their partner excessively jealous or accusatory? Do they show up at the events when you're having like a girls' night out? Does that partner show up at the event and they want to be a part of it, so they can keep an eye on their quote unquote loved ones? Does that person have a history of abusing others? Who were they with before they were with you? Who were they with before they were with your friend? Warning signs. They blame the entire failure of previous relationships on their former partner. They had nothing at all to do with it. They take your loved one's money and they run up credit card debt. And then your loved one never wants to talk about their relationship. They want to keep everything secret, and they become embarrassed of the things that may be happening. Next, please. So we're going to talk a little bit today about creating a safety plan. And I appreciate Dr. Lawrence, as he went into great detail about the need for safety plans and his understanding and helping us to understand that there are higher levels of plans, insulation versus isolation, and I truly appreciate all of that. So I'm going to also talk a little bit about it. And a safety plan, which we know is a personalized practical plan to improve your safety while you're experiencing abuse, while you're preparing to leave an abusive situation, or after you leave. Next slide, please. And when you are, it's always a great deal. And we notice that when we tell people that we're dealing with to create a safety plan, it seems like a great idea at first, but we have to take into consideration that that person may not be in a safe space where they can immediately create that safety plan. It is always important to remember that safety is first, right? In order for a safety plan to work, you have to you have to really be honest and accurate about what is happening in your life, or they have to be sincere and truthful and accepting of what is happening in your life. If you don't feel safe keeping a safety plan or an emergency contact card with you, you can still use safety tips, but it's important to try and memorize those things. Once you complete your safety plan, be sure that it's accessible and that it's in a secure place. You should also have a copy of your safety plan or leave it with someone that you trust. And you know your situation better than anyone. Trust your own judgment and weigh your situation, weigh your options before you make any kind of move. Next, please. So the first part of your safety plan should be identifying your goals. Where do you want to be 6 months from now? Are you planning to leave that relationship? What will it look like? What are your hopes? What are your dreams for yourself and for your family? So begin to list your goals. Next, please. You want to also identify your strengths and your resources. So what are your personal and psychological strengths? What are the ways in which you're strong? And what are the ways that you can stay safe? And you really want to review that. You want to include all of your strengths. You want to look at your courage, and you want to include your faith. What type of housing resources are going to be available? Is there access to a safe place for you to live? Do you own a home? Is your name on the lease? Is there affordable housing that may be available? What are your financial resources? What are your sources of income? Are there other financial support that you can look at building or saving? Next slide, please. You want to make sure that you're identifying your strengths and your resources from an area of legal resources also. Do you have access to the documents, to the legal help, to all the other things that you have to deal with if you're in court? Have you partnered with an agency who might be able to help you to gather those items? What are your social and community resources? What people can you turn to in times of trouble? Is there a church that you belong to? Is there an AA group or a 12-step program that you might be in partnership with? And you also want to evaluate your privacy and your protection. The ability to increase your privacy settings on the computer, on the phone. Can you make your home more secure if the partner is gone? And also look at other resources too. Next, please. So you want to identify your options. What are your housing options? Can you stay with a family or friends, right? We just spoke about, can you rent an apartment or other new housing, or can you go to a shelter? Or can you stay with a partner? We know that there are many shelters throughout the city of Cleveland, but we also know that they fill up very quickly. And so also when you're identifying options, what are your financial options? What we know at the Journey Center is that there is rapid rehousing funding that can help you to be able to meet your financial goals for up to a period of a year while they provide social support to you. Can you open a bank account on your own? Can you get job training? Can you apply for a job? Can you start saving money, borrow money, sell items to raise money? Are you able to do any of these things? And if you aren't, is there a way that you can get to a place where you can? What are your legal options? Do you need to apply for an order of protection or a restraining order? The answer to that is often yes. Do you need to file for a divorce, seek full custody? All of these things need to be thought about when you're trying to do your safety planning. Next, please. What are your social options? Can you join a community group? Is there someone you can talk to for support? Friends, family, clergy, Any psychological options, maybe joining a support group or individual or couples counseling. Look at taking special care of yourself, exercising, so walking, and then journaling to keep track of things. But whenever you write anything down, it's hugely important that you keep it someplace safe where your significant other is not able to get a hold of it. Next, please. Community options. Can you work with an advocate? Can you partner with an employment agency? Can you apply for public assistance, food stamps, Medicaid or Medicare, state health insurance, funds for the children? Next page, please. And then also privacy and protection. Please change all your privacy settings on your social networking sites. Change your locks, change your phone numbers and passwords, and get a prepaid phone so that you cannot be tracked. One of the worst stories that I know is one of my dearest friends who, in the process of changing her locks, at the last minute, she made the decision to change her locks. In the process of the locks being changed, her abuser showed up at her home and proceeded to shoot her in the head because he had gotten word of her leaving and trying to protect herself from him. A day sooner, 2 days sooner would have made all the difference in the world. And unfortunately, he was able to find her and retaliate in a horrible fashion. Next slide, please. Reflect on your choices. The choices that you made, the goals, the risks, the options that you've identified. Now consider and think about what your best choices are. All the things that you've written down, is that the best plan for you? Remember that you can change these things. Nothing is stone. And oftentimes you'll find that you have to create more than one document. And so don't hesitate to make changes. And don't hesitate to move when the time shows itself. The point of creating a safety plan is so that you can be prepared to move when it's time to move. Next slide, please. And so the Journey Center for Safety and Healing is a wonderful place that provides support to those that are experiencing domestic abuse. We also have the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, which is a great place for those who are experiencing, who have been sexually assaulted. And what I know is that there's a 24-hour helpline, 216-391-4357. So it's 216-391-HELP. That is 24/7 that you can call to just speak with someone, to try and get guidance, to get connected with an advocate. I wholly recommend calling this number to get connected with an advocate because they will partner with you in your effort to build your safety plans. The Journey Center has a domestic violence shelter. They will connect you to advocates to help you work through the justice system. If there are visitation challenges with children, there's a safe and sound visitation center where you enter on one side and the partner enters on the other side. So you never have to see each other while they're visiting the children. And we also have a Latina domestic violence project where we focus solely on the Latina community. We offer, the Journey Center offers trauma therapy and support groups. And of course, lots of education around domestic violence. And there's the Housing First program too. So my hope is that this information, which I provided in a very fast manner, will be something that you can use to support yourself or share with a friend to plan that exit in a way that keeps you safe and keeps your family safe. And thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for all the great presenters, all the wonderful information that was shared today. It was a lot of information, but a lot of helpful information. And I hope that our participants had the opportunity to take notes and hopefully start preparing themselves for an action plan. There is a representative from Omega Psi Phi that would like to say some words. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Brother Brian Gundy, if you can unmute yourself. Brother Brian Gundy is our international leader and grand chair for conflict resolution. And so, Brother Gundy.
Great to be with you all. Have about Brother Ricky Lewis, National Conflict Resolution. The first conflict resolution then on the decade, further mediation conflict resolution, as well as
some technical issues, brother, but go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. If you hear me? No.
Am I being heard now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So good evening to the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta and the brothers of Omega Psi Phi. I just want to say on behalf of our Grand Bosslers that we believe in conflict resolution. We believe this is something new in our fraternity, that we are trying to educate our brothers on the issues of today, dealing with conflict mediation, conflict resolution, sexual assault, domestic violence, and the issues of today. Because some of our brothers are very old-fashioned, and we try to work very hard at assimilating them to the changing times and the way society changes, and what is acceptable and what is not. I heard some really great information tonight. I want to shout out to Brother Dr. Lawrence Henry, my friend. I appreciate you, brother. You always doing the good work in conflict resolution. Thank you for what you do. Brother Charles, an invaluable member of our conflict resolution, our international conflict resolution team with the fraternity. I want to tip my hat to him. And the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta, we appreciate you as well, especially in the Ohio area. So thank you for the good work that you're doing. I'm glad to be with you all tonight. I learned a lot from both presentations, Brother Henry as well as Sarah Washburn. We appreciate you and the information that you presented. Thank you so much, Brother Charles, and I yield.
Thanks, sir.
At this time, we would like to give those who have questions or concerns to put them in the chat. We acknowledge that it is a private chat, so that your identity will be secluded and no one will be shared. If there are any comments, you can put those in the chat at this moment, and we will take the opportunity to read questions and comments. Thank you for the informative presentation. I have a lot to think about.
And can I say, Soror, that if you're thinking about it, know that that's valuable, because what it is you recognize that there's a problem. So start thinking about your plan for how you want to move forward in your life. And congratulations on thinking about it.
Also, what I did not speak to this evening, and I think Sister Washburn spoke to it gently, are the dilemmas associated with leaving. Also, the risk analysis, which he did a very good job identifying. But risk analysis is very, very hard. when what are you willing to leave behind? Who are you willing to leave behind? These are very, very important. What risk are you willing to assume? What risk you're not willing to assume? And also dealing with guilt because you assumed you bought some risk. So these are very, very, that's why I say I'm not here to overgeneralize anything. This is a very, very, when a person makes a decision to leave a domestic violent environment and they confide in you to assist them in the planning and execution. It's not just leave. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of factors and variables to consider.
Another comment. Thank you, Dr. Lawrence, for the meaning of gaslighting. It's hurtful and happens quite often in relationships. Another comment is, culturally, it's often taught that one must keep their folks, our family, out of our family business. I believe as a Akin and Stockholm syndrome, how can allies or friends help the person understand that they are in that situation, a bad situation?
So as a person that is not involved in the relationship, you're a friend. And your job is to be there for your friend or your family member, so that when they are prepared to make that move, then you are there to help them. It's important that you do not belittle them, that you do not talk poorly about the significant other, but instead be their shoulder to listen when they speak, and to be available when they call. Dr. Lawrence has more to add.
It was reading my mind. You mentioned a critical word, listening. There is a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing and listening. We hear everything, but we listen to a few things. Like right now, you hear other things going on in your house or in your car, whatever the case may be, but you're listening to this Zoom presentation. When someone in listening involves more than your ears, how they look, how they smell, their mannerisms, their nonverbal communication. So as a friend, as a confidant, the person may disclose to you something, however, everything else is telling you different. And never try not to use start with a question with why, but how or what, to allow them to take you through the journey of their experience. Because why is like, is kind of an interrogation. But the how or what allows them to take you through the journey of being involved in an intimate partner relationship, inter-partner violent relationship. So again, listen. And that's listening is long suffering. Listening is not easy. Listening, it involves patience, understanding, and practice. So we have to practice listening. So when it's time to listen, we could be very effective and active listeners.
Thank you. This comment, the last comment, is a great way to wrap things up. This program helps to reduce stigma and judgment in our community. Let's take this information to support those experiencing violence and a need for a safe person or safe place to seek refuge. I pledge that to be that person. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And with that, it is my great pleasure to wrap up this very informative conversation. I thank my brothers of Omega Psi Phi for joining us and partnering with us in this conversation. And this is not the end. Madam President has pledged that we will continue to have these conversations as long as they're needed, and we know they're needed. So thank you all for your time and your participation, and have a wonderful evening.